Hello, and thank you for watching our final presentation. First off, Grim is a group of web developers. We worked on two projects this semester for two different clients. We'll go through the process, planning, and results for both of those projects in this presentation. First, we'll start with the Antique and Classic Boat Society of Indiana. So first, to give some background on our project with the Antique and Classic Boat Society, to quickly summarize the problem statement, basically they had a website that was poor performing. It was outdated. It had limited functionality, and all the content on the site was very static. If they wanted to make any changes, they had to contact their web developer and wait for the web developer to implement the changes himself. Basically, this tool that they were hoping to have for their club was not serving any of its purposes. We decided that the best solution for their problem was to completely redesign and make a new website for them. We would make sure to implement ways for them to change the site content. We wanted to make sure the site was more engaging and a better tool for the club to get connected. We also just wanted to make the site look a little more modern and up to par with the rest of the chapters of the ACBS. Our strategy for the entire project was to break it into 5 steps. First was kind of discovery, seeing what the client wanted to have from the final project, and what we could also produce for the client that would be the best for them. So once we had a couple meetings with them, a couple client calls with them to discuss the things they wanted, the things that we could do for them, we then made those mock-ups that we showed you, and then we did a couple iterations on those, getting feedback throughout the way, and that leads into the development phase of the project, but we'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation. So the first step in our process was creating designs. We tried to create 2 different styles of mock-up. That way our client had kind of a wide idea of what we could do for them. And then once we had these finished, we sent them off to our client and received their feedback to get, parts of what they liked, see what else maybe they'd wanted included in the website. One big point of their feedback was they really didn't have any expectations or knowledge of what could be achieved, so they were really leaving it up to us to decide what was best for them and what kind of functionality we could include into the website that would end up being most beneficial to them. Our final design ended up being mostly leaning towards the mockup on the left, but it also included some of the aspects of the mockup on the right based on the feedback that our client gave. So here is a better view of the final design we went with. So there's really only 2 designs for the pages. There's the home page, and then the rest of the pages all have a very similar format. We also made sure to include lots of elements that were referring to antique and classic boat design, as well as referencing the club itself, which is that flag you see is from the ACBS's official club flag. And here are just some logos and assets that went into creating the design. We used a lot of these line graphics that are supposed to be tracings, like similar to a drawing you might see for a blueprint.
For the development of the site, we went with the obvious choice for the front end: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These 3 languages are really the 3 major pillars that make up almost 100% of the websites out there. There are JavaScript front-end frameworks such as React and Angular that we could have opted for. However, because this was a website that did not require many reusable components or interactions, we decided to stick to vanilla JavaScript. For styling, however, we used Bootstrap to help us quickly position the elements and make the website responsive with the least amount of effort. For the server-side language, we went with PHP. Some might ask why we didn't choose Node or C# or Python. The reasoning behind this was simple. PHP powers 80% of all the websites out there, and that means easier time getting answers to problems we might encounter during development. PHP also works very well with SQL. Data query language-wise, SQL seemed to be the most logical choice. The database of the website holds users, user credentials, thread posts, events, and list of members with their boat info. All the data were going to be relational to the user list. That meant using a relational database made most sense. For interfacing with such databases, SQL is the most well-known and widely used language.
After our planning was completed, we started development on the back end. First, we created a database that could store member information, forum posts, event information, and administrator data. Then, we created some forms for members to upload that information. We started with the event page, which could only be accessed by an administrator through an admin portal. We decided to take the event name, description, location, date, and chapter associated with the event and sort the event via date, with the soonest occurring event showing first. We also allow users to sort the date by the chapter they are associated with. Next, we created a form for users to upload to a forum. On the forum page, posts are shown 6 at a time, with the most recent showing first. The pages on the forum are generated based on the amount of posts stored in the database. The members page displays member information in groups of 6 and gives member name, boat model, and shows a picture of the member's boat that they can upload themselves. These pages can be sorted chronologically, alphabetically, or reverse alphabetically. However, before a member's information is displayed on the site, an administrator must approve or deny the picture on a separate page after logging in. We decided to sort user information on our pages by putting parameters in the URL, so people are able to send links with more specific information. For example, users are able to send a link of page 3 of a reverse alphabetized list of members. Also, we implemented parameterized SQL statements to help prevent SQL injection attacks against the site, as these can be common on small websites. Finally, we documented how the site can be used by an administrator in a series of short videos that we sent to the club's president.
So to kind of summarize our result, again, the problem statement here was the Indiana chapter of the Antique and Classic Boat Society has an outdated website that is very difficult to update with relevant information. There's very little content for the chapter members to engage with, and the design is outpaced by other chapters of the ACBS. So here on the right, we just spell out how we address the different points of the problem statement, and they give our reasoning for why we think that our solution was indeed a good solution to their problem. And that wraps up the information on our first project with the Indiana chapter of the ACBS. So now we'll move on to our second project with Turn the Page.
Turn the Page is a small bookstore in Westfield, Indiana. Their old site was clunky, and the people who built it originally were overcharging to make basic updates. The client and store owner, Jamie Dagler, wanted a fresh new site that matched the feel of her bookstore, and she wanted to be able to make updates herself. We redesigned the site and set her up on Squarespace to make it easier for her to make updates on her own in the future. We presented the client with 2 mock-ups. The one on the left was designed by me, and the one on the right was designed by Max. The client decided to go with my design, but wanted to use the 6-event layout from Max's design. After receiving feedback on things such as the logo and the addition of new pages, I finalized the new design. I decided to build her site on Squarespace because the client wanted to be able to make quick and easy updates to her site at a moment's notice, and didn't want to rely on another web company. The new site we created focuses on a more modern look to the site. They wanted their homepage to have the majority of the content for their site, so when someone comes to visit it, they aren't clicking through 8 different pages to find the information they need. Their homepage features important things that they wanted, including the About Us section, their news and events, their book of the month, and a section that displays their store hours. When redesigning their assets, I wanted to give them a sort of refreshed logo, since their old logo was outdated and washed out, but I didn't want to change it too much as they have it printed on signs and promotional materials that would be too expensive to redo. In addition to their new logo, I updated their browser icon to match the new color palette, as well as created new social media profile images and headers with the new branding. I also made them a brand guide that includes the new color palette, the fonts I used, the new logos and icons, and the social media assets so they can have it for later use. After transferring the domain, taking down their old site, and rebuilding their new one on Squarespace, I sat down with the client for about 2 hours and walked them through how to do everything on the site. I also created them a training guide with videos on how to make changes on certain things so they can do it on their own without issues in the future.